Hello, welcome to Adestra's webinar. I'm Mushida Syed. I'm an advocate of love and respect, and I do training on love and respect series. I'm right now with one of the fantastic trainers on leadership, Elijah Lim. Please give him a round of applause. Yay! Elijah will address more on the practical everyday leadership and what that constitutes, what that entails. Now, Elijah, how are you today?
I'm fine, Mushida. How are you?
That's good. I'm very awesome, as usual.
Yes, I can see
Okay,
that. Yeah.
I would just like to ask you, because there's so many leadership frameworks happening right now, there's so many theories of what leadership constitutes. Perhaps you can share with us on some of the frameworks of what leadership is, and also at the same time, seeing the state of the world today, a lot of people are very concerned with leadership. And a lot of people are putting a lot of blames and anger on leadership. Does leadership need to be salvaged? Is there a leadership crisis? Can you share your take on this?
Well, I think if you ask anyone on the street after reading the news and watching YouTube and looking at the posts on social media and so on, I think anyone would say that yes, there is a leadership crisis. And I think leadership is something that many people try to describe. As you mentioned just now, there are many frameworks. You have the leadership challenge, you have transformational leadership, you have what is postulated by John Maxwell, you have servant leadership, all kinds of leadership frameworks that are in the market. And to me, they are like different facets of the same thing. A diamond has got 49 facets. If you for example, have even a modern diamond, it has 74 facets. And all those facets are there for one thing, and that is to ensure a total internal reflection. And that is why the diamond glitters so beautifully. So in the same way, I think that all these frameworks are different facets, emphasizing different aspects of leadership. But to say that there is a leadership crisis, I think is very true. Right? Leadership is something that many people define, but I think I say it this way: you will recognize it if it walks into the room. Right? Even if it doesn't have a name tag on, you will recognize leadership.
Yeah, you will be able to tell when a person is a leader. The person walks in and it's like an aura of light coming in, and people just want to be going to wherever he's going. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You describe it as an aura, as a light source.
Yeah.
People have also been describing leaders as a breath of fresh air, coming in. So we will know. And I think most people will agree that there is a dearth, a crisis in leadership. Looking at all the scandals, looking at leaders saying one thing and doing another thing.
Wow. Yeah, that is something that really needs to be addressed, especially when a person with a high charisma, high leadership capabilities leading people to a certain direction, and when the personal values is not aligned with what the message they're saying, that's something that we really need to address. Maybe you can give a little bit more examples about that.
Definitely. You see, like leadership depends very much on the person's own values. What people talk about, what people put on the walls, what people put in their manifestos, what we call espoused values. But the real values are what is being lived out day to day. Do I really believe those values? And if I say that I believe them, how do I behave? And a very, very good gauge of whether or not I actually believe what I say. A couple of things, and all of them have to do with discretionary. What do I do with my discretionary time? What do I do with my discretionary money? Right? What do I do with my discretionary whatever comes to your mind? Discretionary being, it is free for me to dispose of as I wish. What do I do with it? What do I do if I see $1 million on the table in a room, no one is around, and I know that if I pocket that $1 million, no one is ever going to find out? What do I do? That will determine whether or not I'm actually living out my values.
Yeah, that is something. When a person is doing something and it's aligned with the message they say, and when there's nobody in front of them, nobody can see what they are doing, and they still live and breathe that same message, I think that is a really good leader, right?
Most definitely.
Yeah.
And I think that going on from the values, having it inborn within you. A lot of leaders, I think, are not rising up today. They have the values, but somehow they hesitate because a lot of people think that, hey, I am not an ambitious person. I am not here to go all out for my own personal glory, my own fame, my own riches, whatever it is. But I think that people are confusing ambition with the quality of benevolence. And being benevolent is what a leader ought to be, not being ambitious. Now, why do we differentiate? Everybody must say, ambitious, it's good, it's bad. It has its bad aspects and good aspects. Well, to a certain extent, yes. The trouble is, words have power. So when I say ambition, it is a lot of self-ambition. The focus is on me, what I want to do. Where do I want to go? How famous do I want to become? How much do I want to earn? Whereas if we use the word benevolence with reference to leadership, then what is happening is that instead of focusing on me, the leader is focusing on everyone else. I mean, you know the saying, there are great men who can walk into the room and make everyone else feel small. And there are great men who walk into the room and everyone else feels great.
And it's something that I also learned about influence. There are some people who can get people to do whatever they want, and they do not care whether it benefits other people, but as long as it benefits them, and they say, look, I'm influential, I can affect people. But how many people actually want to work with this kind of person? Again, maybe one time you'll be working with this person, but the next time it's like, I'm not going to work with him anymore because how does his values fit mine, right?
Exactly. A lot of people also confuse, not really confuse, they mix up, I would say, influence with manipulation.
Yeah.
There are such things as persuasiveness, and there is also manipulation. I think the difference lies in what is the intent. Yeah. On the outside, the methods used may look the same, but the intent is always different. So if I'm a leader, I'm benevolent, and I'm trying to persuade you for your own good to either adopt a course of action or do something that may run contrary to what you prefer, but it's for your good. I employ persuasiveness, instead of manipulation.
Don't you want to attend his course? I really want to attend his course. This is very, very interesting. Okay, now I just want to relate this to, say, policies. Policies maybe at work, perhaps in an organization, maybe it's the country. If you happen to be the leader of a country and you're watching this, how can you apply certain policies so that it makes you a benevolent leader and affect people positively, right? Perhaps you can share on that, maybe policies in an organization or maybe in a country.
Well, I think it doesn't just depend on the top leadership. It depends on leadership at all levels, middle all the way down. I was working in the armed forces for about 24 years before this. And on one occasion, I had some, what we used to call NCOs, non-commissioned officers. Today they're called specialists, right, with me. And he was a pretty good guy, a young national service full-time chap. And he was, he did his job, no problems, was always very punctual, very professional, always eager to get himself upgraded and things like that, right? And at the end of his service, he was an NSF. Usually we have these certificates of service, right? And for him, I graded him as very good for conduct, very good for service, right? And I sent up the certificate of service to headquarters. Next week, headquarters sends back the certificate and says, you cannot give this guy very good, very good. And so I wrote back and I said, why not?
Yeah, why not?
And they said, oh, he has been charged before. He has been dealt with in a summary trial before. And I scratched my head and I said, I've never charged this guy. When was he charged? And so I asked them, and they said, oh, when he was in officers cadet school as a cadet. And I said, what? As a cadet, everybody gets charged, more or less, for one thing or another, right? And when I dug up the records, I discovered that what he had been charged with was nothing to do with his conduct or anything, but it was because he had lost something during a field exercise. And when I asked what it was something that everyone loses from from time to time. And they had made efforts to go back and search for it, and it couldn't be found. And so the rule said he has to be charged. So I felt that, just to downgrade his certificate of service from very good to satisfactory, which doesn't mean very much, okay, it's not good for him.
Yeah.
And so I wrote back and I said, look, if you want to downgrade it, you downgrade it, but my rating stays.
Yeah, that's good.
And I think they just left it as that, said the rating stay, we endorse.
Yeah.
So that is one thing that leaders at any level can do. Right? You do what is right, and I think everyone else will follow suit.
Yeah, stick to your values, and a leader has to be forgiving. I mean, that's how a person looks up to somebody who forgives. All right, don't you agree? Forgiveness. Okay, now other things that we can also address is how can you help the staff in your organization to succeed as a leader?
Well, as a leader, you are in control of many things. You are in control of frameworks. You are in control of workflow. You are in control of processes. You are in control of policies, rules, regulations, whatever, And so when you formulate them, put yourself in the shoes of those who have to carry them out. Very often this kind of thing is left to people to just write, and then they just take it from the previous generation.
Yeah.
We have to review this once in a while. It can be 1 year, 2 years, 6 months, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But you have to look at it and you have to revamp it. And from time to time, as the leader, go down, talk to the people on the shop floor. I always remember this. Do you know who the founder of the world's first department store was?
No, I'd like to know who.
It's a guy called John Wanamaker. Right? And the first department store in the world was actually set up in the city of Philadelphia.
Okay.
All right, in the early 1900s, I think, I can't remember. And the characteristics of that department store remain to this day. Fixed pricing, no haggling, no bargaining, right, and things like that. And this guy, John Wanamaker, right, one day he saw that a customer was looking for some coats.
Yeah.
Right, and two of his salespeople were standing into a corner, just chatting, with each other and totally ignoring this customer.
Okay.
And so what he did was he just, sidled up and he says, "Sir, can I help you?" And of course the customer was very happy. He said, "I'm looking for such and such and such a coat." And he says, "Oh, it's not here, it's over there." Right? And so he brought the customer there, helped him to pick out his coats, went to the cashier's counter and started to ring the register. By that time, the two employees had spotted that their boss was around. And so they came running up and said, "We'll take over from here, sir." And you can imagine two of them were very, very red-faced. John Wanamaker simply looked at them and smiled, handed the customer over to them, and walked away and went back to his office. Right? So these are ways where you can implement policies. You lead by example, right? And you know the working conditions on the floor.
Exactly. You lead by example instead of condemning. Why didn't I tell you to do whatever I told you to? Which is very common that we face a lot of leaders trying to impose on their staff or on their followers, right? And I learned so much in this short time about what leadership entails, and it's not just about just being manipulative or being influential for your own personal needs. We also learn in this time that being a leader also applies on intention. What is your intention as a leader? What is your purpose of doing the work that you do? And I'd like to thank Elijah for all his input. And thank you very much, Elijah, for that very interesting segment. And please register for any of Elijah Lim's classes. I would highly recommend you. I know him personally and I believe by his values and his personal values and the message that he gives. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.